The passage we will focus on today runs from page 256 in the middle, that is line 658, to the end of the canto. But we have a question pending from a couple of weeks ago. It is this line about a suicidal, rash expenditure, which comes at the bottom of page 253. So I would like to deal with that first. This is talking about the conclusions of reason in our day, in our time. And if I'm to answer this question, I want to start a couple of lines higher up, where it says that the conclusion of reason is that of soul or spirit, we have now no need. Matter is the admirable reality, the patent, unescapable miracle, the hard truth of things, simple, eternal, soul. A suicidal, rash expenditure, creating the world by a mystery of self-loss, has poured its scattered works on empty space. Late shall the self-disintegrating force contract the immense expansion it has made. Then ends this mighty and unmeaning toil. The void is left bare, vacant as before. So several people have asked me to explain this passage. I mentioned, I think, in that previous class that in my view it refers to the fairly current scientific belief about the origin of our universe. I'm not an expert in this field at all, but I will try to explain it as best I can. I think sometime in the 1930s, two scientists, one an Englishman and one an Indian, came up with this theory of the existence of our universe, how it could come into existence. This was because with better and better telescopes being developed after the First World War, between the two world wars, they discovered something very strange. They discovered that it seemed as if every object in the universe, whether it was just a tiny little rock flying around, or a planet, or a galaxy, that all these objects seemed to be moving away from each other more and more and more. And how could this be explained? That they came up with the phrase, an expanding universe. It's as if the universe is being blown up like a great balloon. And how could that have happened? So the explanation they gave was that the origin of the universe must have been a gigantic explosion, the Big Bang. That's how they refer to the theory. They couldn't say in their scientific scrupulousness, they said, we can't say anything about what was before the Big Bang. That is beyond the horizon of our knowledge, and probably we will never be able to go beyond that horizon. We can't know what happened before this event. They call it the singularity. They can only trace, according to their theories, their observations, their measurements, what has happened in the material universe since then. And that has become actually the dogma of modern science, that it's not possible to go beyond the origin of our material universe. It's not possible for human knowledge to go beyond that. So this suicidal rash expenditure is Sri Aurobindo's wonderfully colourful way of talking about this huge explosion. Something was there, we have no idea what it was, but it just blew itself up. And its remains are scattered all over the universe, and they're still scattering, they're still spreading further and further away from each other. This is the suicidal rash expenditure. But it's this suicidal rash expenditure that has created our world. Creating the world by a mystery of self-loss, by blowing itself up so that there's no trace of what was before. Our world has been created. That thing, whatever it was, has poured its scattered works on empty space. And the second part of the theory is that this is a huge expansion. But theoretically, they think that if everything has been blown up like that, eventually they will tend to fall back together again. And there is this theory which is about entropy, that everything will have to collapse back into its original form or into another form, because everything is getting progressively more and more disintegrated, chaotic. So then the poet concludes, late shall the self-disintegrating force, after a long time, they have made calculations about how long it will be, late shall that self-disintegrating force contract. It will come together again, contract the immense expansion it has made. And when it does that contraction, that will be the end of our universe, they think. Then ends this mighty and unmeaning toil. We can ask, what is all this immense expenditure of energy about? What was the point of it all? What is the point of it all? The void, the original emptiness, is left bare, vacant as before. So I hope that this brief amateur expose will satisfy the people who have asked about this point. So we can go to the passage which starts on page 256 in the middle of the page. It's line number 658. I will read today up to the end of the canto, line 766. Where I'm reading from now continues this teaching about the little mind which Sri Aurobindo is giving us in this canto. In the bright kingdoms of the rising sun, all is a birth into a power of light. All here deformed guards there its happy shape. Here all is mixed and marred, there pure and whole. Yet each is a passing step, a moment's phase. Awake to a greater truth beyond her acts, the mediatrix sat and saw her works and felt the marvel in them and the force, but knew the power behind the face of time. She did the task, obeyed the knowledge given. Her deep heart yearned towards great ideal things, and from the light looked out to wider light. A brilliant hedge drawn round her narrowed her power. Faithful to her limited sphere she toiled, but knew its highest, widest seeing was a half search, its mightiest acts a passage or a stage. For not by reason was creation made, and not by reason can the truth be seen, which through the veils of thought, the screens of sense, hardly the spirit's vision can descry. Dimmed by the imperfection of its means, the little mind is tied to little things. Its sense is but the spirit's outward touch, half-waked in a world of dark inconscience. It feels out for its beings and its forms, like one left fumbling in the ignorant night. In this small mold of infant mind and sense, desire is a child heart's cry, crying for bliss. Our reason only a toy's artificer, a rule maker in a strange, stumbling game. But she, her dwarf aids knew, whose confident sight a bounded prospect took for the far goal. The world she has made is an interim report of a traveller towards the half-found truth in things, moving twixt nescience and nescience. For nothing is known while aught remains concealed. The truth is known only when all is seen. Attracted by the all that is the one, she yearns towards a higher light than hers. Hid by her cults and creeds, she has glimpsed God's face. She knows she has but found a form, a robe, but ever she hopes to see him in her heart and feel the body of his reality. As yet, a mask is there and not a brow. Although sometimes two hidden eyes appear, reason cannot tear off that glimmering mask. Her efforts only make it glimmer more. In packets she ties up the indivisible, finding her hands too small to hold vast truth. She breaks up knowledge into alien parts, or peers through cloud wreck for a vanished sun. She sees, not understanding what she has seen, through the locked visages of finite things, the myriad aspects of infinity. One day, the face must burn out through the mask. Our ignorance is wisdom's chrysalis. Our error weds new knowledge on its way. Its darkness is a blackened knot of light. Thought dances hand in hand with nescience on the grey road that winds towards the sun. Even while her fingers fumble at the knots which bind them to their strange companionship, into the moments of their married strife, sometimes break flashes of the enlightening fire. Even now, great thoughts are here that walk alone. Armed they have come with the infallible word, in an investiture of intuitive light that is a sanction from the eyes of God. Announcers of a distant truth, they flame, arriving from the rim of eternity. A fire shall come out of the infinitudes. A greater gnosis shall regard the world, crossing out of some far omniscience on lustrous seas from the still rapt alone, to illumine the deep heart of self and things. A timeless knowledge it shall bring to mind, its aim to life, to ignorance its close. These last few lines are one of Sri Aurobindo's great reassurances and promises and prophecies to us. And with that promise, he closes the section on these three beings of the little mind, the life, the physical mind, the life mind of desire, and reason, which we have been reading about over the last pages. So before the end of the class, we will go right to the end of the canto, but for now I'll go back and explain these lines from the middle of page 256. He speaks first of all of the bright kingdoms of the rising sun. This is taking us back to the beginning of the canto, where Sri Aurobindo shows us the little mind emerging as a rising sun. So he says, in those kingdoms, the bright kingdoms of the rising sun, the emergence of mind. In the bright kingdoms of the rising sun, all is a birth into a power of sight, of light. That's what is happening. The development of mind is the birth into a power of light, which is mind. He says that everything which is deformed here, which is twisted and obscure, keeps there in that bright kingdom of the rising sun. It keeps its happy shape, its undeformed shape. Here in our world, everything is mixed up and marred, spoiled, damaged. But there, it is pure and whole. And yet each movement there is only a passing step, a moment's phase. It is not something lasting and permanent. He speaks about the power who is overseeing this emergence. Here he speaks of her as the mediatrix, the goddess who mediates between the heights and the depths. She is sitting and seeing her works, all that she's done, bringing into manifestation these three beings. And she feels the marvel in them and the force, but she knows that there's a greater power hidden behind the face of time. In time, something much greater is going to emerge. But for the time being, she just does the work that she has been given. She did the task. She obeyed the knowledge given. In her heart, in her deep heart, that power is yearning towards great ideal things, much higher than the development of mind as the ideal. She's looking out from this little light that she's been given out to wider light. But it's as if a limit has been set around her power. A brilliant hedge. It's a very shining, beautiful hedge, perhaps with thorns. It's encircling her. It keeps her power within narrow bounds. But she remains faithful to this limited sphere of action that she's given. Faithful to her limited sphere, she toiled. But she knows that even its highest and widest seeing, its highest and widest power of vision is only a half search. It isn't strong enough to find out things fully. Even its mightiest acts, its greatest achievements, are only a passage or a stage. And this is because of the inherent limitations of reason itself. Not by reason was creation made, and not by reason can the truth be seen, that truth which it's so difficult even for the spirit to see, that reason which through the veils of thought, the screens of sense, hardly the spirit's vision can describe, dimmed by the imperfection of its means. And here he mentions the means of mind. It's the power of thought and the power of sense, the senses, what the knowledge that can come to us through our senses. So through those powers of thought and sense, even the spirit has difficulty in looking through them, because these means of thought and sense are insufficient, they're imperfect. They can never give us the full picture. This little mind, which is emerging now in the story of things, it's tied to little things, it's restricted. Its sense, what it can sense, is only the outward truth of the spirit. It's only half wakened up in this world of dark inconscience, this world which is dominated by matter and the deep trance of matter. The little mind feels out, it tries, gropes to feel for its beings and its forms, just like somebody stumbling about in the darkness, like one left fumbling in the night of ignorance. And in this small mold, this little mind that's given, this infant mind and infant sense. In this stage, desire is like a child's heart, crying for bliss, for ananda, for happiness. And our reason is a toy's artificer. It's like a toy maker who provides this infant mind with playthings. Our reason is a rule maker in a strange, stumbling game. It's trying to set rules and give us directions. But she, this means this power, who's been given the task of giving birth to the little mind in the evolutionary process. She, her dwarf aids knew. That is, these three powers of hers. She knows who they are, what they can do, their limitation. Those powers are very sure of themselves. Their sight is confident, but they're mistaking this very limited prospect, this very limited field in which they can work and learn. She takes that for the far goal, for the great distant achievement. But this world which she has made, the goddess of the little mind, is only an interim report. It's not giving us the whole picture. It's something on the way. It's an interim report of one who is traveling towards the half-found truth in things. And necessarily that traveler is moving between nescience and nescience. One kind of not knowing, of ignorance, and another. Because, the poet tells us, nothing is really known while anything remains concealed. If anything is hidden, and unknown. We can't have the whole picture. The truth is known only when all is seen. But that power, that mediatrix, is attracted by the all that is the one. She's yearning for, longing for, aspiring for a higher light than her own. Hidden by her cults and creeds, the cults and creeds of the little mind, she has seen beyond that. She has glimpsed God's face. She knows that she has only found a form, a robe, a partial knowledge. But she's aspiring for something more. Ever she hopes to see him in her heart and feel the body of his reality. So far, as yet, it's only, or what she sees is only a mask. She can't see that brow full of light. Sometimes two hidden eyes appear, they look through the mask. But reason can't tear off that glimmering mask, that mask which is giving off a faint light. Her efforts, her attempts to go deeper and seek a higher truth only make it glimmer a little bit more brightly. And how does she deal? How is she able to deal with the knowledge that she can approach? It says she ties up the indivisible in packets. She has to cut things up and divide them. It's one of the great characteristics of our analytic mind, no? Because her hands are too small to hold vast truth. She has to do that. She breaks up knowledge into alien parts, separate parts. Or then he likens her attempts to looking through cloud rack for a vanished sun, the sun of truth, of total awareness and knowledge. She has to look through cloud rack. Cloud rack means when the sky is covered by many moving clouds, like we see sometimes before a storm. She sees, not understanding what she has seen, through the locked visages of finite things, the myriad aspects of infinity. She sees something. She sees, in fact, many, many different aspects of the infinite truth, but she's not able to recognize them for what they are. She sees, not understanding what she has seen, through the locked visages, as if they are locked doors that we can't see behind, of these finite things. All these are, in fact, aspects of infinity. One day, the poet promises us, the face of truth must burn out through this mask of appearances. Our state of ignorance is wisdom's chrysalis. A chrysalis is a stage in the development of an insect. First there will be the egg, and out of the egg will hatch a caterpillar perhaps, and then the caterpillar spins for itself a cocoon, and then it will break out of the cocoon as a butterfly. So Our ignorance is a stage like that in our development. Our ignorance is the chrysalis. It's going to give birth to wisdom. Our error, all the mistakes that we make, marries new knowledge on its way. There's all this darkness of our ignorance. But Sri Aurobindo tells us this is like a very dense, blackened knot of light. And he shows us thought dancing hand in hand with nescience, as if they are two friends. And the thought and the nescience are dancing hand in hand, and they are moving together on that grey road that's winding towards the sun of perfect vision and knowledge. So even while the fingers of that goddess, of that power, are fumbling, trying to undo the knots which bind these two together, this thought and nescience, she's trying to separate them, binding them to their strange companionship. Because they're quarreling, they're like a married couple who are quarreling. But the poet says, into the moments of their married strife, of their quarreling, sometimes break flashes of the enlightening fire that will give true knowledge. Between the strife of thought and nescience, or the struggle between thought and nescience. And he tells us that even now, great thoughts are here that walk alone. We find many of these great thoughts in this poem. Those great thoughts that walk alone, they have come into the human world armed with the infallible word, the word that cannot but be victorious and effective. They've been given an investiture, a kind of robe of intuitive light, the light that comes from that high level of consciousness, the intuition. And that investiture, that robe, they've been given these great thoughts. It is a sanction from the eyes of God. God has said yes to them. Those great thoughts come as announcers of a distant truth. They flame arriving from the rim of eternity. They come to us from the transcendent realm. A fire shall come out of the infinitudes. A greater gnosis shall regard the world, crossing out of some far omniscience on lustrous seas, from the still rapt alone, to illumine the deep heart of self and things. That greater gnosis shall bring to mind a timeless knowledge, its aim to life, to ignorance, its close. It's only a few lines, but what a wonderful promise from the Lord. So now we have this last short section with which Sri Aurobindo closes this canto. Above these three, this dwarfish trinity of the little mind, above in a high, breathless stratosphere. A stratosphere, that's the outermost layer of our Earth atmosphere. Very rarefied. We can't breathe up there. Above, in a high, breathless stratosphere, overshadowing that dwarfish trinity of the little mind, there are two greater beings, lived aspirants to a limitless beyond, captives of space, walled by the limiting heavens, in the unceasing circuit of the hours, yearning for the straight paths of eternity, and from their high station looked down on this world. Two sun-gazed demons, witnessing all that is. And then he describes the two demons. First, a power to uplift the laggard world. Imperious rode a huge, high-winged life thought, unwont to tread the firm, unchanging soil. Accustomed to a blue infinity, it planed in sunlit sky and starlit air. It saw afar the unreached immortal's home and heard afar the voices of the gods. Iconoclast and shatterer of time's forts, overleaping limit and exceeding norm, it lit the thoughts that glow through the centuries and moved to acts of superhuman force. As far as its self-winged airplanes could fly, visiting the future in great brilliant raids, it reconnoitered vistas of dream fate. Apt to conceive, unable to attain, it drew its concept maps and vision plans too large for the architecture of mortal space. Beyond, in wideness where no footing is, an imagist of bodiless ideas, impassive to the cry of life and sense, a pure thought mind surveyed the cosmic act. Archangel of a wide, transcending realm, it saw the world from solitary heights, luminous in a remote and happy and empty air. So let's look at these two sun-gazed demons. One of them is a huge, high-winged life thought. It has all the dynamism of the life force. Sri Aurobindo shows both these spirits on a very high level, but maybe the life thought comes first. It can look into the future. It saw afar the unreached immortal's home and heard afar the voices of the gods. And the great service that it does to humanity is that it's an iconoclast. It's a destroyer. It shatters the things that are established in time. It's not, it's just able to leap over all limits and norms. Its power is to light the thoughts that glow through the centuries and that move human beings towards acts of superhuman force, leading us to exceed ourselves. It looks into the future as far as its self-winged airplanes could fly. It visits the future in great, brilliant raids, and it's reconnoitering, it's exploring like a scout vistas of dream fate in the far future. It's able to conceive, this mind. It has these great dreams and visions, but it's unable to attain. It can't achieve those glorious possibilities which it sees. But it's preparing these concept maps and vision plans. They are too large, too developed for the architecture of mortal space. It's something for the future, for the immortals to achieve. And the other one is this pure thought mind, which is looking at everything that's going on in the universe. It is an imagist of ideas. Here, perhaps the term idea with a capital I, it's referring to concepts which are achieved on a very, very high level of consciousness, which can be realized later with much difficulty on the lower levels. It doesn't pay any attention to the cries, our cries of life and sense. It's looking at what's going on in the cosmos, seeing the world from these solitary heights. It's an archangel with great protecting wings. It sees the world from high, high, high above, luminous in a remote and empty air. Perhaps King Aswapati, we shall see ahead, is able to rise to these heights himself. I think we'll pause there for today. The questions that are coming in, I will try to answer next time. Because today, as an exception, we can listen to Mother's voice reading some of these lines, accompanied by Sunilda's beautiful music. Let's close like that. Thanks to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother.
Above, in a high, breathless stratosphere, overshadowing the dwarfish trinity, lived aspirants to limitless beyond. Two sun-gazed demons witnessing all that is, a power to uplift the laggard world, imperious rode a huge, high-winged life thought beyond in wideness where no footing is. A pure thought mind surveyed the cosmic act, archangel of a white transcending ring. It saw the world from solitary height.